One of the very core concerns around the climate change issue, especially as it has to do with Africa and indeed Nigeria, is when you look at it from the standpoint of the Paris Agreement, which in itself has met with certain kinds of obstacle, including U.S. President Donald Trump, who during his first term between 2017 and 2021 did rail against it. As a matter of fact, he had threatened that he would pull America out of that agreement once he became president. And true to his promise, once he got into the Oval Office, he did ensure that America was pulled out of the Paris deal. And then, of course, his successor, former President Joe Biden, would return the United States to that deal. And today, we're back to where the country had been between 2017 and 2021. In the case of Nigeria, for example, the concern perhaps is how can this country take advantage of all of the elements, or at least some of them, contained in the Paris deal? Is Nigeria moving with the rest of the world in terms of climate action beyond the razzmatazz that we see on the media and politicians falling over themselves to get extra codes to attend all of these global events that are focused on the climate and the environment? For instance, the Ogoni cleanup project is still in front of us, and next to nothing has been done about it. While former President Muhammadu Buhari was in office, there had been some 20 billion naira we had been told was earmarked or would be earmarked for that project. But today, the people of Ogoni are still asking, when exactly will this cleanup happen? And they say justice, they say charity begins at home and justice from the next door. So if we can begin domestically, how then can we find the moral and political courage to take the conversation to the global stage? We'll find out after this short break. My guest tonight is Dr. Babayo Sule, is of the Department of Political Science and Administrative Studies at the National University of Lesotho. He joins us tonight live via Zoom from South Africa. Dr. Sule, I'd like to say we appreciate your time. You jumping on the program with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners. You are all welcome.
Thank you. So let's begin with the issue of climate action with regards to Nigeria. There are people who believe, quite frankly, that all we are doing at best is just singing the song and everything left at the level of hypothesis. Is Nigeria marching alongside, or if you like, side by side, the rest of the world as far as the conversation around climate action is concerned?
Well, thank you very much. To start with, climate change is a reality. No one is disputing it. No one is not seeing the effect visibly surrounding our environment, just locally and internationally. But I have this to say precisely. Climate change and climate action is an exclusive imagination, initiation, policies, and innovation of the industrialized countries. I don't think countries like Nigeria have any business with that except domestic issues that are surrounding us and affecting us. But a collective, organized global action, I think, is not meant for the well-being or for the betterment of countries like Nigeria. Well, the reason why I say this is that first, if you look at the total emission in terms of the contribution to the global warming, the entire African continent, comprising of over 50 countries, is contributing only 3% of the total global warming in the world, which means if the whole of Africa is contributing only 3%, and there are countries like South Africa, like Ethiopia, like Egypt, that are becoming more industrialized than Nigeria, it means Nigeria may not be necessarily contributing even 1% of the global warming. So why must we be coerced into signing a Paris agreement in 2015 when this agreement was designed, organized, and initiated by these countries that are warming the world? It is supposed to be an exclusive signature of countries like, for example, the US and China alone, two of them, are contributing about 40% of the total global warming because of their industries and other activities that are detrimental to the coexistence of the mankind in the ecosphere and the biosphere. Then, these countries like US is now withdrawing under Trump. It withdrawn. It was readmitted, and it is now still being withdrawn, which means they don't care about the action, they don't care about their effect, they don't care about their impact. So why are our countries going to the UN, as you mentioned in your introduction? Why are they going to various meetings, COP20, 20, whatever, all this in the name of climate change? I think what we need is an action at home. Of course, I agree we need action at home, because we could all bear the witness of the excessive flood during rainy season, of the drought during drying season, of the increasing temperature, as now people are lamenting back at home. In some state or some section of the country, it is reaching up to 40 degrees centigrade. And other actions, just like what happened in the Alo Dam, the vehicle, and other issues, of course. Look at Lake Chad, for example. Lake Chad, which is practically benefiting about 30 million inhabitants from Nigeria, Niger Republic, Chad Republic, and Cameroon Republic, had now it is 95% depleted and dried. It is no longer existing. One of the promises in around, I think, 2002 or somewhere, a climate action agreement was that the Europe, under the European Union, will assist these Sahel countries to replenish the Lake Chad. And the easiest way, according to them, is to drag water from the Congo basin, from the Congo River, or if you like, from the ocean in Central Africa, which cut across Congo to Central Africa, now to Cameroon or to Chad, and then to Lake Chad to replenish it and refill it. But unfortunately, the activities of Boko Haram halted the process. Now, to draw water from the Lagos Lagoon is practically impossible. It's far, far away. And then during rainy season, Nigeria could not find an action, a process, a program that instead of this water flooding, to find a way that we can rechannel this water and then pour it into Lake Chad so that it will be domestically replenished. It means we are not doing the needful. And then, as you mentioned again in your introduction, the atrocities of the oil companies in terms of oil spillage, pollution, degradation, destroying the aquatic habitat in the Niger Delta, and other harmful practices are still not being contained by the Nigerian government. And the oil companies are not being held into account for this. And the Nigerian government is not locally channeling the money that is required to clean these areas. Now, who is deceiving who? The government is not acting. The global community, the so-called global community that is pushing forward this so-called climate action, is not also forthcoming as it is. Companies are busy destroying our environment, in which action speaks louder than words. We should see how, for example, one of the agreement in the Paris Climate Agreement of 2015 is our countries are coerced into agreeing that gradually or rather aggressively they will withdraw fuel subsidy, because subsidizing fuel according to agreement is leading to more carbon emission, is leading to more global warming. So we should refer to renewable energy such as solar and wind energy, and then anything that will lead to the subsidy will lead to the waste wasteful activities, so government should withdraw. So this is part of what the Buhari government kept on doing gradually, and what the Tinubu government could not be patient enough to do gradually, but rather drastically, without any thinking or thinking of the possible consequences, just withdrawing it illegally without even consulting the National Assembly to have the approval to withdraw it. And now we are all seeing the repercussions. So the issue is actually climate action means, to me, we should avoid these global policies, these global practices, because they are not meant for us, they are meant for them. And there are terms and conditions that are favorable to them and unfavorable to us. And they are not willing to, if Donald Trump, who is believed to have his country contributing more than 20% of the total global warming, is now withdrawing from this agreement, why do you think countries like Nigeria and other African countries will form part of this agreement when we have our issue? Look at how climate change induced conflicts are displacing in the northeast, in the northwest, in north central, in almost all parts of the country. Why can't we look in, bring domestic means of adaptation, resilience, and survival by introducing maybe crops that are flood resistant, crops that are drought resistant, by finding a way to clean our environment, by holding these oil companies into account for what they are doing, which is harmful to our environment, and by the government itself initiating and introducing policies that will be beneficial in terms of countering, adapting, and resilience toward this, instead of just mere rhetorics, instead of just charade that is being perpetrated by charlatans in the name of politics, which is not really working. So this is my little take on this. I don't know, maybe if there are other things that maybe I need to say.
There are concerns around the moves that Nigeria has made so far, the last few years in particular, with regards to, well, efforts to respond to climate action. Well, we attend conferences every now and then, both within the African continent and beyond it. Are we putting our money where our mouth is in this sense?
Well, honestly, you know, the problem of Nigeria is not policies. It's not even the money. Of course, we don't have the money. We are not rich. Because if you look at our population, if you look at the wealth we produce, if you look at our GDP, if we look at our per capita, you can say we are poor. But we are only poor because we make ourselves poor. And the policies are not bad. The policies, most of the policies we initiate, whether on climate action or even anything outside this, are not that bad or poor. The implementation is the problem. Judicial utilization of the resources is the problem. These are the two major issues. Judicial utilization of the allocated resources for that purpose. And then the implementation, justifiably, these are the major problems. Sometimes we can allocate a huge amount of money in billions for such actions like what you said, the cleaning, what the Buhari government did for the cleaning of Ogoni land. But unfortunately, what happened? What happened was it is not yet to be carried. Then where is the money? Did the Buhari government allocated the money in principle, not in action? Or the money was allocated but it was stolen? Or the money was allocated but it is not being put into practice? These are some of the issues that are always annoying as far as Nigeria's policy making and implementation is concerned. And I am telling you, the problem is that, as I used to say, if you are counting countries, 10 countries in the world, or I can even say 5, that are affected by the effect of climate change and that need climate action, is Nigeria. For example, out of the 30 million people that are surrounding the Lake Chad, about 65% is from Nigeria, which means almost 80 million or more. They are Nigerians surrounding Lake Chad, from Borno, from Yobe, from Adamawa, from Taraba. But then it is now almost dried up by 95%, which means we have a more population that is supposed to be benefiting in terms of fishing, in terms of irrigation, farming, in terms of transportation, in terms of commercial activities, in terms of tax generation and collection. But it is no more there. And Those that pledge supporters are now saying there is insecurity of Boko Haram, so it's not feasible. And then we that are supposed to identify a local means of channeling some water into it to see how we can start replenishing it, we are not doing that. Now, when you come in with internally within the country, it is the same issue anywhere you go. And look at how the Niger deltas are suffering for what they call environmental injustice because of the way their land is being, even though I don't need to go into this, also they are merging their activities with criminality, which is not supposed to be this, because if you are fighting environmental injustice, you are supposed to restrict yourself to it so that it will be justifiable and you can earn the sympathy and the eulogy of all activists and human rights, whatever. But even at the same time, no one can deny, no one can debunk the degradation. No one can go and do fishing now in the Niger Delta area. You cannot cultivate. You don't have a farmland. Sometimes even transportation is harmful because the toxic air that you will be inhaling and even the carbon dioxide that you will be exhaling are also detrimental to both you and the plant and animals that are coexisting together with you in that ecosystem. But what is the government doing? So therefore, to me, what we need is not to wait. Now, thank God that we have a president like Donald Trump, whom I'm appreciating some of his policies, particularly this cutting of aid. A country like Nigeria, we don't need aid. What aid do we need? For example, like some 4 years ago, I read that the Borno state government received an aid of 10 million US dollars from the government of Canada. During that time, if you convert the value of this 10 million US dollars to Nigerian naira, it's not more than 4 billion naira. Tell me, what is 4 billion naira to the Borno state government, either in terms of revenue generation or revenue allocation or shares from the federation account? Why will a state government that will have a budget and allocation of over 100 billion or more annually within will be collecting 4 billion naira as an aid or grant from Canada to do what? Why can't we judiciously utilize, prioritize, and put our money into where it will work for us for any action? The problem is we are not even in a position to negotiate. What our countries, like for example, Nigeria as a leader of Africa, or rather as a demise leader of Africa, let me use this word because we are no longer what we used to be, should mobilize other African countries to now be pushing for a reparation, to be pushing for compensation from these industrial countries like US, China, UK, Germany, and others that are polluting the world, that are warming the globe, that are spilling oil and other things in our countries, that are just plundering our resources in Africa. Just look at what is happening in Congo. But unfortunately, anytime we go for this COP 2020, whatever, for this climate action Paris agreement, it's just a draft document that is already designed by these few elite countries that will just swallow hook, line, and sinker. You will see our president going to the United Nations. Those who write their speech for them will include this, that the Nigerian government reiterate its commitment toward climate action, toward all this, toward renewable energy, all this. We are only saying this to appease the sentiment of these superpowers without looking at our own part and where we'll benefit from. So to me, we should first take a domestic action sincerely, and then we should be pushing for a compensation. But what can you say when our government are even giving a room for these industrial countries to come and dump the toxic waste of their industries? I believe many do not even aware of this, that it is happening. And Nigeria is one of the countries that is affected. Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, Chad, Algeria, and many other African countries are giving a room for countries like Sweden, Switzerland, UK, US, China, and others to come and dump their toxic industrial waste in the Gulf of Aden, in the Gulf of Guinea, in the Atlantic Ocean within Africa, which at the end of the day is toxic, is harmful to our health. And the most annoying thing is that what they are paying for that is insignificant, because I read that if it is there in their land, for each ton of a toxic waste that is disposed within their land, they may pay about 100 US dollars, but here they can pay as low as $2 to $5 for each 1 ton of toxic waste. So, in other words, we are not prepared, we are not ready for that. And I want to urge our government to be serious with that. We have the means. We have those who are expert in climate change, who are expert in climate action. We have those who have been investigating, who have been working toward that. All that we need is three things. The first one is we need to devise a means of adaptation and resilience internally. Secondly, we need to find a means of holding these countries that are responsible for it accountable. Third, we need to mobilize other African sisters to see how we can be asking for reparation and compensation from those that are warming the globe, in which we are not part of it, but we are most affected. I think that's what we need to do. We should be serious. Let us do the action, as we call it, action instead of talking.
I must say, Dr. Sule, that's a brilliant punchline you left there when you talked about the need to put in more action instead of doing more talking. We'd like to say a big thank you to you for joining us on tonight's conversation, and we wish you a big weekend ahead.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure also joining you. Wish people there Ramadan Mubarak.
Right. I've been talking with Dr. Babayo Sule, who joined us live via Zoom from Lesotho, South Africa tonight. He's of the Department of Political Science and Administrative Studies at the National University of Lesotho in South Africa. Coming up next is the hallowed chamber still hallowed tonight. Well, we'll find out after this short break. Do stay with us.